Lightroom's negative clarity settings give skin surface a nice glow, but as you'll see in this video, it's nothing like the effect you'll get with Photoshop's surface blur. I'll start by making 2 virtual copies of this image. I'm going to use Lightroom's adjustment brush to soften the skin. As you can see, it does a good job. But now, I'm going to bring a copy, the other virtual copy, into Photoshop. I'm going to right-click on the image and edit in, and this time I'm going to bring it in as a smart object in Photoshop. This enables me to use a smart filter, which means my changes are non-destructive and can be changed at any time. Now, in Photoshop, the first thing I'm going to do is change this from 16 bits to 8 bits. I just want to be able to go through this process quicker, and 16 bits really takes a lot longer. Okay, now I'm going to choose Filter, Blur, Surface Blur. Now there's lots of ways to blur an image in Photoshop, but I find Surface Blur does a good job of blurring the flat surfaces of an image while preserving the edges. The radius options here specify the size of the area sampled for the blur, while the threshold option controls what is blurred and what is not. I'm going to move both of these sliders around until I get the effect that I'm looking for. I'm not so worried if I lose some of the details. I can fix that later, as you'll see. Okay, when I'm done, I'll select OK. Obviously, I want the image to have eyes sharper and, let's say, the lips sharper. And I can easily do that by using the mask over here in the Layers palette. I'm going to click on the mask over here under Smart Filters. I select the brush tool and set my foreground background colors to black and white by using the D key. These are the colors I'll use to add and subtract from my mask. So I'm going to use the bracket keys to enlarge and shrink the size of the brush. The right bracket key will enlarge the brush, and the left bracket key will shrink it. I'm also going to make sure to use a brush with a soft edge, and I can choose that up here under my brush options. So I'm going to start with the eyes, and by clicking on the eyes, as long as I have the correct color selected here, I'm going to make sure that the black foreground is showing. That will now actually mask in that area. Let me blow this image up a little bit with Command or Control plus symbol. And you can see by masking the eyes, I'm now deselecting the surface blur and bringing out the original eyes. I'm going to move over the left bracket key, make it a little bit smaller, work on this eye here, work on that eye. Can also come down to the lips. Now the eyebrows, I want those also to be a little bit sharper, but I don't want it to be completely sharp. So I'm going to come up over here in the options bar at the top, and I'm going to change my opacity of my brush. I'm going to move it down to about 50%. And once I've done that, it's going to control the flow of the brush so that it won't be such a strong black that's applied to the mask. So to lessen the effect, I'm going to move my cursor and paint in mask over some of the hair. And this lessens the effect of the surface blur. Move my cursor around like that. Okay. There's another technique I can use to modify the effect of the surface blur. For this technique, I'll double-click on this little icon here to the right of Surface Blur in the Layers palette. This brings up the Blending Options dialog window. I'll select Lighten. As you can see, this also produces a nice effect and brings back some of the texture. So let's bring this photo back into Lightroom by saving it. As you can see, this easy Photoshop technique created a much more dramatic looking image than Lightroom alone was capable of. Here's the image retouched in Lightroom, and here's the image retouched in Photoshop. You can see the difference.